My name is Amy Fearing. I'm the Interim Senior Academic Officer. I oversee all the academic programming in Minneapolis Public Schools. I first thought about going into education probably in high school. My family and I took a trip over to South Korea, and that's actually where I was born. We spent much of our times in the schools where we were observing and listening and forming relationships with the students and the teachers who were there. And I discovered that people learn English as a foreign language. I'd always seen English as a second language in the United States, but it was different to me to see English as a foreign language. And so when I came back to the United States, I had a renewed interest in the ESL programming that was at my high school. So I started volunteering in those classrooms, and I really became attached to those students. And it was really evident to me that I was a parallel student in the same grade level as these students, but yet I didn't know them. And I was actually very saddened by that in high school, that I had never had the opportunity to get to know these other students. I majored in ESL education, English as a second language, but I also majored in English education. I was able to take a job offer in Minneapolis Public Schools. I started teaching at Edison High School. I would teach high school students during the day, and then I would teach their parents at night in adult basic ed. I learned a lot about the nuances of relationships, families, communities. I started an ESL program in another district, and so I am very glad for that opportunity because I was able to see the difference of urban education to suburban education. And it really helped form the ideas of what it means to be able to have the resources, to have access and opportunity, and what it means to not. The school that I had the honor to be a principal of for 7 years, Wellstone International High School, serves 100% English language learners, most of which were refugee and immigrant students. It affirmed a lot of the ideas and the beliefs that I had about what does a well-rounded education mean to students that don't necessarily have that access outside of our school. So things like technology or engineering or art or music, these are things that I had to intentionally put in place in the high school because I knew that our students didn't have necessarily the agency to be able, or the capital to be able to access all of these things. I think my experience now has led me to this position where now I'm seeing it from a much larger view. So I went from being teacher in the classroom to being a building leader to now being in a position where I can kind of put all of that together. To be honest, I do feel a tension. You know, it's difficult to not be in the classroom, it's difficult to not be a principal, and I would say probably every single day I think about that. One of the things that I want to be very clear on is if we're going to have a strong educational organization, we need to make sure that we have people who have lived experiences at all various levels within it. We all know and would agree that we need to change things in Minneapolis Public Schools. You know, the academic outcomes, for sure, the achievement gap, opportunity gap. We need to do some major work on that. So this is our opportunity. We are the key players in this work. So either we can sit back and let the years of complicity go by, or we can say, let's engage in this work, let's take hold of this opportunity. Much of it is about how we're learning about ourselves as educators in a very segregated system. What does it mean if I don't share the same race or the same culture or the same language or the socioeconomic status as my students? I have had to begin that work with myself, being a teacher, a principal, and now in this position here. And I'm hoping that the CDD will allow all of the stakeholders in our educational institution or organization to go through that same journey and to continue to go through it. I think when you're talking about community schools especially, now you're really looking at what is the complexity of what makes up this community or this neighborhood. What is the historical trauma perhaps, or what is the historical narrative that this community carries with you? Our land and our environment carries a lot of our history, and if I'm going to teach in that environment, in that school that's sitting on some land that maybe used to be something else to the neighborhood, I need to know that because I can weave that into my instruction. I can educate students about the place where they live, the place that they belong. Some of our community schools may already have a lot of this. Many of our schools do not. They haven't had the opportunity, nor have we supported them in resources or time to actually get to know their community. When you do that as an educator, then what happens in the classroom is so much more powerful. To be very clear on this comprehensive design is it is about being able to reallocate resources in more of an equitable way and to start attacking some of those structural pieces that have caused the inequity. But I also want to be clear, there are many of our schools that still need things. They might have the community and neighborhood support, but they also maybe have larger class sizes. Maybe they don't have all the opportunities they need for their advanced learners or for intervention. The needs might change, but this structural piece will help us to be able to align everything. I'm hoping that this comprehensive design will allow us to do that. I don't want to underestimate how emotional this is for families and for students. It's a very emotional process for all of us, but at the end of the day, as the senior academic officer, it's really about the academic outcomes for our students and that they all have the opportunity to have a well-rounded education before they leave our system.